In this series, Herd Strategies President Denise Herd connects with industry leaders and community members to discuss the challenges they face within their fields. Join us bi-weekly to learn all about how they see us.
Hi, my name is Denise Herd, and welcome back to another episode of How They See Us. If this is your first time joining us, we are so glad to have you. And if you're a returning listener, thank you for your continued support. Today's episode is part of our Pride Month series, and we're diving into a complex, timely, and deeply important conversation about what it really means to live with pride in 2025. We're unpacking everything from the fallout of anti-DEI legislation to the cultural misunderstanding of woke politics and how those shifts are impacting the lives, health, and safety of our LGBTQIA+ communities. And I am so thrilled to be joined in this space by two incredible guests who are leading voices and powerful influencers in this space. First, we have my dear friend, my confidant, my shoulder to lean on, the fabulous Mr. Patrick. He's a fashion icon. He is a critical thinker. He is a public personality. He is a brand. He is the legendary, extraordinary leader and visionary of the IBE Summer Celebration Fashion Show. And he is a true CEO of fabulousness. Also joining us as well is Jason Grisell, the president and CEO of the Health Foundation of Greater Indianapolis. Jason has dedicated his career and his life to expanding access to health resources for Indiana's most vulnerable populations, and he brings a deep understanding of the policies shaping LGBTQIA+ lives today. So Patrick, Jason, thank you so much for being here today. But before we get started, I want you to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and the work that you do. And so Patrick, do you mind kicking us off, please?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
Denise. I'm so honored to be on your show with you, Denise, of course, of our relationship. Being not only a friend, but being my sister. So, and when you asked me, I said, oh, of course, darling. I had to be on here.
So appreciate it. Thank you.
So you asked me to tell a little bit about myself. Of course, Denise, now, honey, you have given it to me, child. You have, you have done what you've done.
Well, that's what I do.
You've done what you've done. But I do want to mention some of the other parts about me that are amazing as well. I am the marketing director at Pharmony Pharmacy Services. Yes. So, over there at Pharmony, we provide medications for our community. And the beautiful thing about that is being able to do that for so many people. The pre-packaging that we do, the free delivery service that we do, and then also to being able to sit on the board of the Health Foundation allows me to be able to be in the community. It allows me to be able to do great things and be able to help make some amazing decisions in the situation that we're in right now. Let's just talk what it is.
Yeah, right.
And not only that, but the other part of my life is that I am the fabulous Mr. Patrick. And if you are following me, you know that you're following the most fabulous of them.
Oh, and he's humble too.
Right. And I'm very humble.
Yes.
Very humble.
Very humble.
Very humble.
Very humble.
So those are some little things about me, some little nuggets that I always like to share.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So, how do we follow that, Jason?
I don't know that I can. My goodness, my background pales in comparison to
all
Mr.
of us
Patrick.
do. Welcome. We commoners,
Yes.
Oh, I am sitting amongst royalty, y'all. Trust me.
I've had the privilege of working at the Health Foundation now. This is my 18th year.
Oh, wow. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In that time, this is my 9th year as being the president and CEO. We've been around since 1985. This is our 40th anniversary this year for the Health Foundation.
Congratulations.
And in that time, we've been able to provide about $85 million worth of grants to the community. Our primary focus is around HIV, and AIDS. Here recently, we've gotten into some hepatitis C work with a statewide program with the State Department of Health. We've had an AmeriCorps program building the next generation of public health leaders around HIV, substance use disorder, harm reduction. And we've done other grants through the years, but we're just not worth as much as we used to be. And while that creates some challenges, it also makes the work exciting because it allows me to be creative, problem solving. It's not the same thing every day. And so I really appreciate having the opportunity and the privilege to do the work that I do.
You know, my mother used to always say, necessity is the mother of invention. And so when we have to change how we do things, when there's a need for us to change how we do things, we become very, very innovative. And I think what we're going through right now, what we're witnessing at the city, state, and even federal levels is forcing us to be mothers of invention. So, you know, keep doing what you're doing, and it will come. Yeah. It will come. So I've got a lot of questions for you all. And so I want to start off with something personal, though. And so when you think of pride, you know, what comes to mind for each of you, you know, and how has that definition evolved for you over time?
Well, for me, when I think of pride, I think of it as a joyful time, you know, the experience of being able to be who we are, celebrate us as we are, and also to have our families, friends come and celebrate with us, you know, because we're who we are, you know. And a lot of times, if you don't have that support around you, rallied around you as a family member or a friend or a friend, you know, you need that. And you just not only need that in the community of the LGBTQ plus, we just need that as human beings, you know. Yeah. And with life, I just say that they've put titles on everything, they've put initials on everything, you know, but we are all the same. We're all the same. We're all human, you know. But I love pride. I love pride. I was in DC this past weekend.
I saw your pictures
at World Pride.
I saw
And
that.
when I tell you guys, it was something amazing to see. I had never been. And to see at least 10 blocks or more of vendors on both sides of the street. And to see so many people. When I was up on the VIP dais and I was looking out. And when I was looking out, I was like, wow. I said, look at all of these people. I mean, you could just see miles of people. And I said, wow. I be honest, I thought about Martin Luther King.
Oh.
I said, this looks like, you know,
when he was
this
on the
is
mall.
right. I said, wow. And it was all so many different walks of life. The parade was amazing. To be able to see so many different people.
Did you find yourself emotional
Very much
looking
so.
out at all that?
Very much so. Very much so. For what we're dealing with and being in Washington, D.C. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely so. Yeah. I mean, it was not only that, also to doing the Trans March as well the next day, you know, marching to the Lincoln Center, you know, it was amazing.
So, anything you want to add to
I'll
that?
say for me, when I think of pride, I think of the phrase like journey, because everyone is on their own individual journey. I can think of friends that didn't come out until their 40s or 50s, and because of whether it was family pressure or society, and I just think about their journeys are very different than someone coming out now in high school. And I know for me, I'm in my mid 40s, and my journey was very interesting. You know, I grew up in one of the local township areas. There really weren't any gay kids, you know, but, you know, I was bullied. You know, everyone assumed that I was gay. So, I mean, I was bullied in high school, and I was just ready to get out. I wanted to blend in with the wallpaper. Just don't look at me. Let me get this school done, and then I can figure out the rest of it. And through my interest or my spirit to give back, I got involved with Indie Pride. I was on that board for about 6 years, about 10, 15 years ago now, but back in the day. And it really, for me, that journey from being that scared kid in high school or middle school, getting bullied, to I was the treasurer for several years for Indie Pride, so I'm paying RuPaul her money when she performed, and so these celebrities,
and hanging with the celebs,
right, and I'm up on the stage, and I look out at this sea of 40,000 people, and there's like the emotions that come with that, of just the journey of the city's journey. From a small gathering on Monument Circle to this type of festival to my own personal journey, it's sort of the marrying of those journeys is such an interesting tapestry within the community and within each of us as individuals. Because I know this isn't part of your question, but one thing I talk about with some of my friends is, we're in this space talking about culture and different societies and how people interact, and BIPOC and DEI and all these things, but I feel like being gay or we have our own language, we have our own culture.
Tell the tea.
But I do feel like it's not as well respected as saying the Black experience or a Latinx experience. Right. But there's a value, I think, to the LGBT experience that I can't explain or understand what it means to be a person of color, but I know what it means to be gay. And so it's a nuance to society that I think is sometimes overlooked. And so I'm glad that we have Pride Month to be able to take that opportunity to maybe shift a little awareness, a little focus on that as people are experiencing their journeys.
Right. I just, it's interesting, Patrick, both of you have said such profound things, and I just think people are people. Like you said, and it's not I don't care who you lay down with or who you get up with every morning. If you are a moral, sound, kind, genuine person. And I remember being in college, and we talked briefly about this before we started this conversation. I had a very dear friend in school, and like you, he hadn't come out, but we knew, and we were friends. And I remember when he decided to tell me, it was so precious. He bought me a book that said, "What Are Friends For?" And it was a cartoon book, and he had a Post-it note in the book, and it said, "What are friends for?" And the little character said, "Friends are for telling your mother that you're gay." And I looked at him and said, "So am I supposed to tell your mother?" And we both just busted out laughing, and that was the end of it. And so we were friends, until he left us. And so people are just people.
He probably told you, "Girl, she already knows."
Look, I was like, "Baby,
for our community, Mama already knows."
So it's like, baby, let's just. Well, and she did, because later on, she and I had a talk, and she was like, "Girl, I knew." I said, "I know." I said, "He was so." Anyway, but thank you for that question, because we have seen things evolve in the community over time, good, bad, and indifferent. And I think about him, who I met back in the 1900s, and now we're in the 2020s, and things are different, and the community is viewed differently. But there's been progress, but then there's been some things that we're not proud of. So, but I want to shift gears a little bit, Jason. This question is for you, because I want to talk a bit about the Health Foundation and the work that you do, because you do fund critical services for some vulnerable populations in our community. And so I want to talk a bit about policy changes that you've seen, or legislation that you've seen in recent years, and the direct impact that your organization is feeling as a result of that.
It's really interesting, back in the late 80s, early 90s, people living with HIV, it was very difficult. Life expectancy was low. With the advances in science and medication, people are living a lot longer. You're going to probably most likely die of something else than something related to HIV if you can stay in care and you can stay on medication. And that's therein lies the rub. There's a lot of conversation happening right now in DC about Medicaid, and about 70% of people living with HIV in the state of Indiana are on Medicaid. And so if that goes away or eligibility changes, what does that mean for these individuals who it is critical to their lives to remain on these medications? In addition, from a prevention perspective, there's U equals U, which is undetectable equals untransmittable. So if you're someone living with HIV and you're on your medication like you're supposed to and you're adherent, eventually you could get to a point where they do undetectable. They do a blood test and they do not detect HIV in your bloodstream, and then you're unable to transmit it to someone else. So not only is that individual healthier, because they're not going to be prone to an opportunistic infection, but also they're not going to be able to transmit it to someone else. So it's like win-win for the community.
That's what we want. That's our goal. That's our goal.
Absolutely. And so changes to Medicaid, changes around the ACA, the affordability of health insurance, can have dramatic impact to individuals living with HIV, especially if you're on a fixed income, maybe you're retired. Right now, there's a lot of conversation and focus around aging with HIV. The largest cohort, I was just in a presentation a couple weeks ago, the largest cohort of people living with HIV are 50 or over.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, how do we care for individuals that are aging with HIV to make sure that because from a geriatric perspective, as your body ages, what does this mean, for nutritional supplements or bone density and all these other aspects that perhaps were always on the table, but people didn't live as long back then, and now they are. And so how does that work? But when we think about the changes to the policies, oftentimes it centers around dollars and cents and not about people. And there's not enough focus on the people that those changes are going to impact. But yet we'll have a military parade for $45 million this weekend.
Let's not even,
So what does that look like?
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Denise, I want to jump in there just a
Please.
little bit because I want Jason to also be able to talk about PrEP.
Oh,
Tell the people a little bit about PrEP, Jason, so that because so many people are unaware of PrEP.
And it exists, and
It does.
and that's the prequel. That's on the front end before you even engage in any sort of sexual activity.
Exactly.
So,
correct. PrEP, it stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis, and it is a medication. There's a couple of medications that are available for PrEP, but the idea is you take a pill a day if you're someone living without HIV, and by taking that pill, it's over 99% effective to keep you from obtaining HIV if you were to engage in unprotected sex. It's been shown to be effective around injecting drug use. I don't know that it's actually labeled for that, but it has been shown to be effective. So this is probably an unfair comparison, but in my mind, as a gay male, it's almost like birth control for women. You take a pill
That's
to
fair.
avoid
That is-
getting
that's-
pregnant.
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
take this pill to keep from getting HIV.
Right.
And there's pharmaceutical assistance programs if you can't afford it, if your insurance doesn't pay for it. There are ways to get it. A lot of the AIDS service organizations or HIV service organizations around the state of Indiana can help you get connected to PrEP and help you pay for it. Where sometimes what people may have is difficulty with the labs. It's recommended that you get tested every 3 months to make sure, is your liver function okay by the medication, because some people have a reaction, and to make sure that you're still HIV negative. And it's every 3 months, and maybe they can get the pills paid for, but not the labs because you have a high deductible plan. And there's some services around in the state of Indiana to help you with that as well. But yes, PrEP is a huge piece in the toolbox to help stop the spread of HIV.
But it's the stigma that's associated with HIV.
Yes.
Because if you think about it, if you are having unprotected sex, it's not just a sexually transmitted disease you could obtain or catch. You could get pregnant if you're a woman. It's almost a form of healthcare. It's like, what do I need to do to protect myself if I'm going to be intimate with someone and I may not use a condom or any sort of other, a condom? So I just think that when we present things, it's, on this side of the table, we're communicators. So it's all about words, and words matter. And so when we're working in this space, we have to be cognizant of, if I use these words or this analysis to explain what this drug is for, then I know I'm going to set people off. But if I explain it in this way, then I know it will be something people can understand and engage with. So if I say, this is a great drug for teenagers who may engage in, experimental,
Exactly.
then people may be, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. So when a mother is taking her daughter to the gynecologist to talk about birth control, this could be a part of that narrative too.
Absolutely.
If we framed it that way.
That is correct.
But
And equally, there's issues, right now, for the last year and a half or so, Indiana has had an issue with syphilis.
yes, very much so.
Including
Yes.
congenital syphilis, where babies are born. And so we have partnered with the State Department of Health around a marketing campaign to address pregnant women and expected women that are pregnant to have children about getting tested for syphilis. Because while PrEP is effective against you contracting HIV, you could still get gonorrhea, you could still get syphilis, you could get all the other things.
Yes,
it's
yes.
not a magic bullet that's going to
Right.
keep you from everything. So it's always important to think about safe precautions, whether that's condoms or abstinence. Whatever is good for you. Right? Absolutely.
And I wanted to come in on that part too as well, because when I started hearing about PrEP, guys, and I just have to be honest, I got scared about it.
You did.
And that was because of me starting out and doing the work that I started doing in prevention when the disease started attacking so many of our friends. The CDC was looking at the prevention. They were we were pushing condoms, use condoms. And when I've been at events now, and because of PrEP, this is what scared me, because people would they want to use the PrEP thinking that they are not going to catch any of these other diseases.
Okay.
So what they're doing is they'll walk past the table that has all of the condoms, and they'll go over to the table that might have all of the snacks. And you're not getting that condom anymore because you're thinking that they're undetectable, they're thinking they're on PrEP, and that's the scary part, versus where at times, people took condoms. I would see them taking gobs and gobs of condoms when we would do table prevention, and I was one of the original members of Brothers United at that time.
I remember that.
And now they're called BU Wellness, doing great work in the community. And so I say that that's the part that scared me about PrEP.
I understand, and that's okay. It's okay to be afraid. I think that when you're afraid, it means you're like your antenna's up. And you're trying to gain knowledge and understand, okay, what are the different variables? What are the different aspects? What do we need to think about? Because what we're trying to do is make sure people remain healthy. That's the goal.
Well, and the interesting thing is, the CDC has had a recommendation for probably 20 plus years that individuals 15 to 64 should be tested for HIV at least once in their life.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
We could look around this table. Have you been asked by your primary care provider about your HIV status?
right,
Have you been tested?
right.
And I bet the answer a lot of times is no.
Yeah.
Because, there's people that we know in our field. It's like, well, I'm a 50-year-old married woman, and they're like, they don't know what I'm up to, So like they should be asking everybody that fits within that, because if there's people. That's the thing is HIV can live in your body and not present itself for quite a while.
Wow, yes.
So like there's estimated to be about a third more people in the U.S. living with HIV. They just haven't been diagnosed yet.
Everyone should be tested. I know, like for the herd, we've all been tested. Like we've all, we did a campaign with the health department that focused on women and HIV, and so we've all been tested. But I just think it's the responsible thing to do. It's my body, and I want to know what's going on with my body. It's kind of like, so I just, well, anyway, that's a whole nother episode. So I'm gonna shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about something else, but yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. So Patrick, this one's for you, because you are just filled with joy. Every time, always, even when you're mad, you're joyful, so.
Okay.
And so, you just bring an element of happiness and joy and celebration, and you're really about self-expression. That's something that, I've known you for many, many years, and that is a descriptor I constantly use when I think about you, that you're all about self-expression and standing in your own truth. And so I want to ask you, how do you think that visibility and representation in culture help counter political attempts to silence or erase queer identities?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that we will not be erased.
Okay. Okay. Everybody's doing that. Okay. Yeah.
We will not be erased.
Okay. Okay. Well,
And that's the part. I don't want to go too far into it,
it's
Denise,
okay.
but
That's okay. It's
that
okay.
is
All
the
right.
part right there, you know. And for me, being able to be myself, who I am, I decided that walk when I was 19.
Okay.
And so, because I had
I would have loved to have seen you at 19.
and a lot of people just
For
do not
real?
know.
Yeah, I would. We're gonna need some photographs or
We
something.
will.
I need some 19. I need some.
Be honest with you, everything is still looking good. And I'm so grateful and thankful.
Okay. Looking good,
Somebody,
like
right. Somebody said, "Child, do you get old at all?" I said, "Child, I'm working on it, honey." I said, "This old arthritis, baby."
Don't talk about Arthur. Don't talk about my new boyfriend, Arthur. He won't leave me alone.
Exactly, and
He be
he's mine
stalking-
too.
he be
He's stalking
stalking
me.
me. Yep.
He wants me to come up out of my heels,
I know.
and I'm not coming up out of my heels yet.
Oh yeah, he pushed me out of mine and knocked me down on the ground and said, "I wish you would." So.
So, but overall, I try to be who I am, and I love being who I am, and I love
We
making
love you
and I
too.
love
We
making
love you
spaces.
for it.
Thank you. I
We
love
love you
making
for it.
spaces, and I love for people to understand is that you can be who you are,
Yeah.
you know, and you can live in the space that you're in, you know. And I always try to say for myself, I try to make sure that I'm creating great spaces and being in
You're
great
good at that.
spaces.
You are very good
You
at
know,
that.
and I say one thing: I'm going to be respected in whatever space I'm in because I'm going to respect your space.
Gotcha. Okay.
And one thing I love about you, Patrick, is I respect the space you create for others. Because, you know, as we talked about people's journeys and we're all individuals and we're all different, but like, I have never seen you be disrespectful to somebody.
No, he
you,
hasn't.
you,
But.
I mean, I've seen some tea being slung, but, you know.
Oh yeah, he can bring some piping hot tea now.
That's-
And some biscuits. Some biscuits to the conversation.
But
And a little crumpet.
you have been such a pillar in this community for so long. Like, people, younger folks nowadays should look to you as an inspiration on how to lead a successful and meaningful life to its fullest.
Right. And Jason, I thank you for that. And you know, I have to be honest that we're speaking about that. One thing for sure and one thing for certain, we all have made mistakes in life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I-
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not perfect. Don't expect to be perfect. But I've had times in my life, you know, that I knew was a trying time. But I thank the Lord of where I'm at today.
But I think that Patrick, and I know you, so we you know,
Right.
and I know when you made the decision, this is who I am, this is what I do. All of that went away. You know what I mean? Like you just, you know, so I just want everyone to know everybody has a story.
Exactly.
Everybody has a past.
Exactly.
But when you make the decision about this is who I'm going to be, this is the energy I'm going to push out, this is what I represent, then you start seeing what we're seeing with the fabulous Mr. Patrick. So he was born out of something, you know, because that's usually how things happen. They're born out of something. So, yeah. All right, my love.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Little teary-eyed,
Yeah,
but that's okay.
Got a little
We-
welly on me. Got a little welly. Okay. Well, we're gonna shift. Let's shift gears a little
Shift it
bit.
on
Let's
back
shift a
out.
little bit, because you know there's been a lot of pushback recently about the word woke, and it's often used as a catch-all insult. And so when you think of that shift in the interpretation and the use of the word woke, what do you think people are really reacting to when they attack, quote, wokeness?
You know, I thought about this in advance, and the things that came to my mind, manufactured outrage.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
where, people just cannot stand things that are not like themselves. And anything that is different, anything that, well, that's not for me, therefore nobody else should do it too.
Right.
And it's like, where does that even come from, other than privilege, other than, just an inflated sense of their own ego or self?
Come on with it. Come with it.
But people, people just manufacture this outrage,
Right.
and they pick populations, they pick people, they pick organizations to take their anger out on. And when I think about, part of what we're talking about is policies and laws and things. Part of democracy is to protect the minority from the majority. Right. And that's where we're failing right now. There's this manufactured outrage by a very vocal, I view almost minority, but they're being emboldened to take these broad attempts to disrupt the government because that's what they feel like they're being empowered to do. And it's not what democracy was built on or how it's supposed to be. But yeah, it's really this pursuit of a homogenized society where we're all doing the same thing at the same time.
And how exciting is that?
How boring would that be?
Boring.
That, all dressing the same. I want to dress like Patrick.
Right.
but-
Okay. Don't we? Okay.
I mean-
well, we said when he walked up, I was like, well, okay. And you all can't see this, but there's a fabulous bag sitting behind me that might, like, if you close your eyes, it might disappear. Like so yeah. We would all like to be as fabulous as
That's
you
right.
are. So.
But yeah, I think about manufactured outrage as a justification for taking freedoms and rights and the ability to, I have some concern about. I'm married. I've been with my husband now. November will be 23 years we've been together.
Congratulations.
And thank you. I
Awesome.
had some recent conversations with my dad, and I'm like, you know what? We're probably the most stable relationship in our
In the
entire
whole family.
in generations.
Right.
And but yet, what's next? Are they going to come for our marriage? Because what? Why do they care so damn much?
Like, what did I
Right.
say? I don't care who you lay down with. I don't care who you get up with. I just need you to be a good human being and don't snatch my purse or take anything away from me. Just do you, and I'll do me.
Right. So that's where my head was.
I love it. That's thank you. And so anti-DEI sentiment is growing strong. And it's just blatant at this point. It used to be very covert. Now it's very overt. Jason, what impact does this have on funding? And access to health care and support services for, our LGBTQIA plus communities, here in Indiana.
The things that we've seen so far, when we think about DEI, we're thinking about organizations that may unapologetically serve populations of color, our Black brothers and sisters, our brown brothers and sisters, and just, they're being cut out of funding. If you either need to change your mission statements, you need to change who you're targeting for programming, or you're not going to get federal funding or potentially state funding. We've seen that for organizations that serve the trans population, that the minute they hear the word trans or anything having to do with equity, you can just forget it. And I think a lot of us have seen the list of what I call the no-no words. But like women is one of those no-no words. Like, we can't talk about women? Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
But when we think about having to change websites and mission statements, there's been programs that were shut down by the CDC because they were focused on the trans population or specific to Latinx populations. Now, some of that has been restored due to injunctions at the federal level with some of the courts. But we don't know if those injunctions are going to stand. They don't encompass all 50 states. It may be just those states that were involved in the original lawsuits. But we're seeing healthcare systems having to sort of shift how they're delivering care when we think about gender affirming care. But you know what? Like breast implants and hair plugs, all of that is gender affirming care. But one of the interesting pieces about DEI, that last one about inclusion, also encompasses those Hoosiers that have a handicap. If you're in a wheelchair, it's not just a performative outrage about trying to level a playing field after years of racism and systemic racism and all those things. It's also, it's curb ramps for people in wheelchairs.
Right,
It's
right,
elevators. It's all the
right.
things. It encompasses so much more. But again, it gets stamped with this label to center people's anger or center people's misunderstanding because they don't really know what they're talking about anyway. But they're told that they're supposed to hate it, and so therefore they do. But, thinking about access to healthcare, with some of the things that are happening now with ICE, there's individuals that may be living with HIV or just those that are
Wow,
underserved.
I didn't even think about that. You're right. Won't go in for treatment.
They
or
won't go
don't-
in because they don't
they're
know.
Scared.
That's right.
Oh my
100%.
gosh.
So like,
Oh my gosh.
there's so many layers when you start unpacking it.
Yes.
But when we think about the impact of DEI, it was never about trying to give a population an advantage when there has always been an advantage for us white people. It's just trying to level that field for those that have had to work harder for less. And I say this frequently recently. It's like we're sort of pining for the good old days, before this administration. But you know what? The good old days weren't that great.
Right, that part. We were struggling back then.
Back
That's
then.
right.
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 Yeah.
And
yeah.
if DEI, the thing that if it's so threatening and had been so effective, then why are we still talking about it? It's like because
Right.
the work was not done.
Right,
It was
right.
not done.
That's true.
And for us at the Health Foundation, there had been for years. I'm kind of going to sidetrack us for a minute, but we had talked about the need for diversity of providers around HIV, whether that's caseworkers or medical providers. But we weren't quite sure how to respond to that. Like, I can't make someone go to med school. But so after a lot of internal conversation, what we've done is we've endowed scholarships. A $250,000 scholarship at the IU School of Social Work and a $250,000 scholarship at the School of Nursing at IU Indianapolis for minority students finishing their MSW, their Master's in Social Work, or that are going to be a nurse practitioner. Because if you're stable, you're undetectable, living with HIV, probably 96% of the time, you're going to see a nurse practitioner, not an infectious disease doctor. And so if we can do that's something to do, to help those trying to finish those degrees, to raise the water of the community, all boats, go up when the water comes in. So, it was a small piece that we felt we could do. And it's, those scholarships will pay out the interest, and so they're in perpetuity.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And we will continue
Wonderful,
to
wonderful.
consider investing more monies into those funds.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I've just been given a cue that I have to bring this conversation, I have to wind it down. I know, right? I know, they're so mean to me. And so, because we could talk about so much more, and maybe we need to have another conversation.
I agree.
Maybe we need to bring you all back and maybe, and delve into this much more deeper. I would really like that.
Right.
And so as I wind this down, I do have one last question for you both. And that's about legacy. How do you want to be seen? And what is the legacy that you hope to leave behind?
For me, I just want people to really see me for who I am, respect me for who I am, and the part that I tell people, and even in our community, I tell those that have that wisdom, that are working and grooming those individuals of our family, the LGBTQ plus. If you know that you have that wisdom, and you calling this auntie, you calling me uncle, you calling me sister, you calling me mama, brother, whatever you're calling me, I want to share that legacy with you of showing you that, hey, this is the way to go. And that's the way I want to be looked at.
Okay. I see you. What about you?
Legacy is an interesting word for me. Working for an organization like the Health Foundation with, right now probably $85 million worth of grants, and we're still going. I want that legacy is more important to me than myself, because I'm just a small piece in this. It takes a team, but when folks think about me, if I'm talking about my own personal legacy, I want to be remembered as someone who never claimed to know everything. I'm always learning, but I try to approach every situation with win-wins. It's not about my ego. at all. I approach things with humility and some humor, and then the rest of it should fall into place.
Humility and humor just make life so much better.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely does.
The day I learned how to say, you know what, Denise, you don't know everything, so you're gonna need to ask for some help. Okay. You know, it was like a light, like the flip of a light switch. And then when I learned how to laugh, like even laugh at myself, especially when I didn't know what I was doing, and it just made life so much easier. So thank you for saying that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. How do we find you? How do I find you, fabulous Mr. Patrick?
Well, you can find me on Instagram. My IG is @Patrick, and then also too, I'm on Facebook as Patrick Bouquett.
Righty.
You can reach me.
Oh, thank you. And how do we find you, and how do we learn more about the foundation?
The Health Foundation, our website is THFGI, which is basically the Health Foundation of Greater Indianapolis .org. So that's THFGI.org. And my email, if someone would reach out, you can just say, you can put Jason at THFGI.org. It's pretty easy.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So Patrick, Jason, thank you so much for being here and for this powerful, heartfelt, and necessary conversation. Discussions like this serve as a critical reminder that Pride isn't just a month. It's not about a parade. It's a movement. And it asks us to stay informed, and we have to speak up, and we have to show love, and show love loudly. And so to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to How They See Us wherever you get your podcasts, and follow Herd Strategies on our socials to stay up to date on future episodes. Until next time, take care and talk soon.